I would like to introduce now Professor Montaña Camara, Associate Professor of the University of Complutense of Madrid, and she will talk us about wild plant foods as a new source of bioactive compounds.
Thank you. Thank you. First of all, I have to thank, and it's an honor for me to be here in this second Food Value Conference under the auspices of the Pontifical Academy of Science with the presence of Monsignor Sorondo. I want to thank also to the local organizers, Professor Francesco Soffi, for all his help with all the arrangements to be here, and very especially to Paolo Pasquali and all his family to host us in a beautiful Villa Campestri. And I have to say that I share completely the vision of the food and life. As I knew in this group, I just want to tell a little bit about my activities. I'm not as tall as Jean Xavier. Okay. How can be? Okay, now. I'm professor of food science and nutrition in the department in pharmacy faculty in the Complutense University in Madrid. I teach in the grades of pharmacy, food science and technology, and human nutrition and dietetics, and we have the postgraduate courses in the master in human nutrition and dietetics and the master in food science and food safety. It was very nice for me yesterday during the lunch. One of the students from here, from Florence, that was doing an Erasmus stay in Madrid, that was attending one of my topics in the Complutense University last year. So it was very, very nice to meet her. And I also has responsibilities at administration work as vice rector in the International University Menéndez Pelayo. That is, main site is in Santander in Spain, in that beautiful palace that I hope someday we can organize a conference or some meeting there. And last summer we had the opportunity to have Monsignor Sorondo visiting us and giving a talk about the Laudatio Si by an invitation of our rector. So I'm going to share with you some of the results that we have in our group related to wild plant food as a new source of bioactive compounds. Monsignor was asking about how was the food intake in the ancient times. Ancient people, the human being, start selecting food from the environment and was intaking all the food that was valuable for them in terms of nutrients and calories, and rejecting those food that was not, or either were not good sensory quality, or it was just toxic, it was not good for health. And there was a selection during the time because the disponibility of food was not very good. We have to think that in the ancient times, the life expectancy was like around 35 years old, and now we are 85 around, a little bit more in women than men. That means that in ancient times, the wrong food choices had a direct impact in health. But now we have other impacts in health, and I think there will be in the future generations the ones who will really be responsible that the wrong food choices will be completely directly involved with the health. But that it was more important in that times because life expectancy was shorter. And for all the possible edible plants, all the biodiversity, that there was something that we were talking yesterday that is being reduced, but it's not only being reduced, we are the ones who are reducing the species that we use as food, because from the all available ones, we only use 150 species, and from those, only 12 of them provide 3/4 of the world's food. And if we think about the mega crops, there are just 3, rice, wheat, and maize. So there are much more biodiversity than the ones that we really use, and that's the focus of this talk. Wild plant foods has been part of the Mediterranean diet since the beginning, because all the successful cultures that were the inhabitants of the Mediterranean area exchanged their culture and exchanged the food habits. So they were there and they were part of their food intake. But nowadays, there are new trends recovering traditional practices. It was the previous speaker saying that we have to do that more. And wild plant collections are arising. Now it's more in fashion, even in the novel cuisine, I will say at the end of the presentation. Also, as a new philosophy of life consisting in returning to nature, or even in the developed societies, or as a tool to fight against food shortages in the developing ones. Some plants that they are wild for us, they are very nutrient for people who has no other foods. Okay, so since the 19th century, there has been a lot of progress and public health measures in Europe leading to increase life expectancy, as I was mentioning before, like around 84 years old, and as a reduce of mortality in early life, one thing. Also, infectious disease are reducing, so we have a better well-being. But at present, we have a new diseases. We have the chronic diseases that are leading a cause of mortality and morbidity, being cardiovascular disease, the main one in developed societies. And many of these diseases are related to food intake. So in this sense, epidemiological studies, of course, are very important. Biochemical studies also are needed to do the association between the intake of vegetables and better health status. And what's the reason for? Is because plant food have a lot of bioactive compounds. Last week was the World Heart Day. It was last 29th of September. And Vytenis Androukakis, the European Commissioner for Health and Food Safety, said that he sent a message saying that he is a big fan of the Mediterranean-style diet that is rich in fruit and vegetables, that is good for health. But unfortunately, the number of people suggests that not so many of us adopt this kind of regime. So he was insisting on this is something we have to adopt. That was last week. And the reason is because the beneficial action of vegetables is due to the presence of a wide variety of substances that include macro and micronutrients, as well as other non-nutrient compounds, the ones that we call bioactive. They are not necessary for life, but they are good for health. And they are related to diabetes, obesity, cancer, cardiovascular disease, to improve the immune system, different ones. So that's the things we do in our lab to analyze these compounds. We can consider these vegetable products as a functional food, like this table was like from tradition to innovation. We have to say that in Europe, there is not a legal definition of functional food. We just have a working definition that is a food, that's not a supplement, it's a food that beneficially affect one or more target functions in the body beyond adequate nutritional content. And even more, it's not necessary to have a good nutritive value. It just has bioactive compounds or a health benefit. And it's completely different that, this food has to be consumed as part of a normal food pattern. And it's not a pill, capsule, or any form of dietary supplement that could be more similar than the food supplements in Europe or nutraceuticals considered in United States. In addition, food in Europe must complete the European regulation in terms of health claims and also information in labels to consumers. So in our lab, we analyze this plant food and we test also the potential biological activities. We have been working with more than 40 different varieties of wild plant food, and if we think about the number of countries where they are consumed in the Mediterranean area, 3 of them Phoneculum bulgari, Pertulaca oleracea, Silene vulgaris, are the ones who are consumed in more countries. So it looks like in the Mediterranean area, there are a similar pattern, although in each area there are typical plants, some of them are common in all the Mediterranean area. We will have to check also it is not only Mediterranean area in terms of the sea, in terms of the same climate conditions. So these are the 4 ones more commonly used, consumed. So now we go to the analysis, and I want to show you some of our results. All these plant foods are very low in terms of calorie content, so are good for healthy diet. Only Allium and Peloparsum, that is the wild of the Alliaceas, is the only one that has more highly calorie content, but the other ones have very low than 40 kilocalories per 100 grams, so that is really very low. And if we go to the different compounds, bioactive compounds, and we start with fiber, fiber is a relevant compound in all the plant food because insufficient consumption of fiber in Western societies is related with health problems. So here we have the content of the different varieties analyzed, and according with the European regulation, we can say that, by example, these plants are source of fiber if they provide 15% of the daily intake recommendations, and high content if they provide 30% of the daily intake recommendation. So you can see that all of them are source of fiber, and some of them can be considered like a high content of fiber. So that's good news. If we go to minerals, that's also very good, because starting with the sodium, here is the opposite. We want a diet low in sodium. So there is a regulation also to be considered low or very low content in sodium. So according with the regulation, all the species that they are marked with the blue or the yellow square means that are low content of sodium, or the yellow one, very low content on sodium. So that is good. Other thing is the sodium that we add in the table, but just the one that provides is very low. If we go to the other minerals, most of them are source, that means the green squares, and some of them are high content, that is mean like calcium, copper, manganese in the Asteraceae. So that is also a good news, that they provide micronutrients as they are the minerals. If we go to, okay, now we move. One thing related to minerals, in the previous speaker was talking about the phytic acid that binds calcium and reduces the viability. In these plants, we cannot forget that they have oxalic acid, or they can have oxalic acid. That is an anti-nutrient. So we have to see the correlation between the content of oxalic acid and calcium, because if the relation is above 2.5, it can be an anti-nutrient content and it's not good for health. But some of these species, yes, of course, they have very high value, but those species usually are consumed cooked. So during the cooking process, it will be a release of this oxalic compound that is soluble. So for this species, we should reject the liquid after the cooking process. And another species has very low relation, so they will not have any problem from nutritional point of view. Related to the fatty acid content, of course, we are talking about vegetables, so the unsaturated fatty acids are the predominant ones, and some of them have more than 60% of essential fatty acids as the omega-3, so that's very good news. And only they have a small amount of unsaturated fatty acid. The main fatty acid is the alpha-linoleic. That is good because it's an essential fatty acid, so it's necessary for our life. If we go to two hydrosoluble vitamins, starting with vitamin C, that has two roles. One, as vitamin, is necessary for life, and also it has a bioactive component because it has antioxidant properties. We can see that some of the species cover, with 100 grams, cover, okay, doesn't matter, cover the one, in the middle. Oh, all right, thank you. Okay, some of the species cover 100 grams, the 50% of the dietary intake recommendations. So they are very good source of vitamin C. Vitamin C is thermolabile, so it's destroyed by heating process, but some of these species can be consumed fresh in salad. So that will be the best way to do that, to preserve the vitamin content, the vitamin C content. And relates to folates, that is most interested even, because folates are very important for women's health and the newborn when they are pregnant, because a deficiency in folates, it's correlated with alterations in the newborn in the neural tube. That's the reason that, especially in United States, a lot of food for young women are fortified with folic acid to have, to really, the women, once they get pregnant, they already have the levels of folic acid, the properly ones. So with the results show that most of the species analysis cover the 50% of the necessary intake, but some of them, even the 100%, all the data intake, and even over. So they are very, very good source of folates, these wild species. So that's the good news. Oh, yesterday, Professor Francesco Visioli was talking a little bit against of the antioxidant paradox. I'm in favor in terms that it's a reality. All day we are getting more oxidized, and that is good because it means we are alive. The day we are not oxidizing ourselves means that we are not here in this stage. So that is a reality, no? So the formation of free radicals is a constant in our life, and in addition, we have a lot of stress factors that also increase the amount of free radicals. Our body tries to fight these free radicals, and we can also fight against that through food components. The thing that Professor Francesco Visioli was mentioning, I agree, that is the solution is not in any one single component of the food. It's just a combined mechanism of many different compounds that they are in the food, that the ones that they have these functional properties, the antioxidants, antitumorals, or whatever. So we try to check what was the antioxidant properties of our plants, and here is very good because some of them, here the importance is the opposite. As lower is the amount that has good activity, is better, because means that with low amount of intake of the plant food has very high activity, because reduce the antioxidant problem, no? So here are the good levels, the Anchusa azurea, this one, Apium nodifolium, this one very low. With very low amount, we get very good results. Same thing with this other study, Anchusa azurea again, Apium again, and Sonchus olearaceus also very good. And the last activity that we checked was a study that was done here. I don't know what's happened with the label, but this study has been done here in the University of Bari with Professor Donato Di Venere. Donato Di Venere, with one of my students, were doing the antifungal activity, because these plants, the extract of these plants can be used to prevent contamination, in this case with penicillium. That is one of the main diseases that can happen in fruits. So it can be used, the extract of these plants, like, as a food preservation system. Oh. All of these results has been compiled besides different publications into these books that some of the professors of the present in this room, their work is also present in collaboration with more than 28 professors from more than different universities, institutions, and 6 different countries in Portugal, Italy, Spain, and United Kingdom, and different ones. And, wow, okay. And we have to, not to forget, the title is also missing, the role of wild food plants in the gastronomy. In the gastronomy, since the novel cuisines to the vast cuisine to the slow food movement here in Italy are also present. So it's another value that they have. All of this work has been done by people of my research team in Spain, and I truly believe that wild plant food consumption should be preserved in 2 ways. One is because their bioactive content and nutritive value, and also because the social value is the way to put in value the culture and the typical products of each area. So it can be also good for health, good for the environment, and also a way to promote the local culture. So, grazie.